many have heard of brand action? Like billion. And that's more, that value is more than what a company like American Airlines is worth, company like Citrix is worth. So when you're talking about what unique value proposition we should bring to the table, and I had the answer, or probably any of us had the answer, we'll probably be doing what Brand Action did. And you'll probably have to look into yourself and figure out something which can bring in a totally disruptive value to the whole world.
Yes, and Dr. Banerjee represents NIIT, and you would have heard large votings of NIIT Cloud campus. That's a disruptive where, through the cloud, the services, the training services of NIIT is now reaching to far off places at an affordable price. So even the existing businesses are making use of cloud and reaching out to new territory, new set of customers, having different pricing models. At the end of the day, they are benefiting the customers.
It essentially encourages IT to talk to the business more. I mean, IT needs to be hand in hand with the business. The CIO today, pretty much in most large companies, reports to the CEO. Historically, it used to report to the CFO's office. I mean, if people are familiar with that division. And the CMO, the Chief Marketing Officer, spend on IT typically they say the budget is going to be higher than the spend of the CIO. So what that's telling you is the cloud is changing the way business thinks. And so your value proposition has to be the way how you can add value to the business and what problem you want to solve for them and how you can help them. I think that's the most important thing I would encourage people in the cloud era to think about.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next.
Here, the first question is there any instance where the critical data like credit card and all that is hosted on the public cloud? So we have that kind of example as on today. And second question is more from the
Is it related question or so?
It's not.
So let's take this question first. So any example of critical customer data being hosted on public cloud?
The short answer is yes. You're going to create a profile just like you do for a consumer website. How many of you keep your credit card or debit card on Flipkart? Most of you do. I mean, that's the reality. And that's the short. People do that with Amazon, right? You keep your profile. So the answer is yes, people do that. And there are safeguards, there are instances of credit card theft, happens all the time. I guess in the US, in Target, there was swiping that happened at the point of sale itself, right? So security, I think, and I defer to my experts on security itself to comment, but that happens online, offline, cloud, non-cloud. So I don't think cloud is a determinator of that. So people do keep information, and there are data protection issues and all of that. There are more privacy issues than security issues to answer it very differently, right? I mean, people like your healthcare records, that is governed by HIPAA, by privacy acts, more than by security itself. So there is a little difference there.
I think Anand has said disruptive.
Okay, so let's move on to the next question to this group. Yes.
Yes, we have a sheet given where it mentioned the different topics. Agenda sheet, but it does not say that who can attend what, and we as few people does not have idea on the role. What we are doing is currently relevant to what we are going to attend, because there are two.
This question I think is addressed to me. For the organizers. So let me just quickly, I actually intended to do at the end of panel discussion. So shall we just, because it will derail the knowledge discussion, I'll address this at the end of the panel discussion. This is something which I plan to do. Can you go to the
another question? Yes. And we are talking about cloud and big data analytics, but so far we in the presentation or so far we does not have mention about the technologies or the what are the companies they are they use the different, what are the technologies different companies use in order to work with cloud analytics or big data analytics.
Okay, so what is the technology landscape for cloud analytics? What are the different companies available for cloud analytics and big data analytics? Okay. Let me just start with the big data analytics. So In big data, there are 4 categories on the technology point of view. One is the big data storage. So big data storage, I mentioned that where cloud can play a very important role because of low cost, and we are looking for a commoditized storage system. So that's where cloud can play a very big role, and you have various players. You have all the infrastructure as a services company who are providing this facility, like Amazon Web Services, IBM Cloud, Microsoft Azure. You have Rackspace, various companies that are in this area. On top of data storage, so once you have stored the data, you have to then analyze the data. Okay, you have to do analytics. Now, for big data analytics, there are various tools that are available. I had a slide on big data landscape. I'll share it with you. But there are various tools, like for example, Big Data R on Hadoop. That is one open source analytics tool. R was already a tool which was available. It's an open source tool. That is also upgraded, where R can actually do analysis on Hadoop database or on NoSQL database. So that is one. And then you have other companies like Tableau Software. Even IBM has their own product for big data analytics. Once the analysis is done, you have to inform where they can present in a visual format what the data says. Okay, so that also can be clubbed in analytics. Once it is done, there is another role that is emerging, and that is called big data narratives. They are typically very high-end consultants and data scientists who can actually communicate what data is saying in business terms. So ultimately, it has to flow up. So data is coming down, and the technology is handling it. But ultimately, it has to flow up and give some meaning to the business. So this is the overall, and there are various players. I'll just quickly, after the panel discussion, I'll show you one landscape. I'm not sure if you can see from so far, but we'll be sharing the PPTs of all the presentation that you will see today. So it has a big data landscape. On cloud, somebody will like to from the panel.
A big data problem that I'm working with at McAfee. So in the case of McAfee, we have two things, right? One is how are our products doing in the field? And this probably you can all relate to in your own applications and products. So products, when they are in the field, what is the performance? What is the ecosystem it's working in? So you install an application, what operating system is it on, what patch it is on, what other applications are in the box, things like that. All the data we can use. Then the second thing is second is the aspect of I'm trying to see how I can articulate this for you. The threat landscape, right? So when threats occur, what can we do? How do we correlate? Is it happening by geo? Is it happening by finance sector, health sector? Is it happening on a particular set of platforms? So that kind of correlation also comes in. So for some of these, what the tools we are using are Hadoop Mongo kind of tools for storing the NoSQL kind of data, the raw data that's coming. More interestingly, for the analysis part of it, we are using real-time Storm infrastructure, which is open source made by Twitter. They've opened it, and so that gives you a lot of benefit. And for visualization, we have the security or system incident response products, like the SIM product, as it's called, incident and event management products. The SIM product, we have one with McAfee, and that's primarily focused on looking at threats and correlating all that. And that can also visualize for you the different threat landscape. And similarly, it can also alert what's going on, and that can go back to the business and say, this is what is happening in your field, and things like that. So if you know, for example, which platforms your product is working on, you can imagine how valuable it is for dev and QA, developers and testers, right? They do not have to test all the different combinations of platforms their product needs to work on. They could take a chance, maybe informed risk, and do 80-20 kind of rule, and maybe it's only Windows 7 that you need to test for the first week. Do that, get the product out, then you can always follow through.
So things like that are value propositions of real-time analytics that we can gather from the field.
Right, right. And just to merge this question with the first one, so if you look at the cloud, how it impacts the business, what are the transformation, and if you are at a leadership level, at a project manager level and above, cloud business and leadership track is for you. So just specifically for your question, the first session is actually infrastructure as a service, which is what cloud storage, which will be taken by Nitesh Patni from Seagate. So you can ask him what are the other infrastructure as a service provider. We have the third speaker, Shekhar Gulati. He's from Red Hat. They have a platform as a service called OpenShift. So there will be a live demo on each. What we'll do is that on each, we have during the tea coffee break, we'll elaborate more on this. But some of these questions you will get addressed in this track. Let's move on to the next group.
So my question is, or our question is, what are the challenges once we decide that we're going to move to cloud and becomes a really compulsive move in terms of business value? What are the challenges, or typical or major challenges that we will face in quickly transforming our applications or software into cloud?
So you're asking for post-migration challenge or migration challenge?
During the migration, what are the things that happen?
Excellent. So we will be covering in detail at 325 implementation or migration challenges from Oracle, but we'd like to hear from other. Maybe Mr. Banerjee, if you can start. Yes.
So if you take the top level applications, that's typically the one that's got the most challenges, because you're trying to change people's business processes, and that's always hard in change management. Right, so you're moving something to the public cloud, maybe from your Siebel instance to Salesforce, or from PeopleSoft to a HCM cloud provider. What you're really saying is you're completely transforming the way they do business. So you're starting off with a transformation project, right? So that involves a full-scale transformation. You're going to have the usual challenges: data migration, user adoption, user flow testing, integrations, interfaces, on and on and on. Right, that's at the highest level. You go down a level, you're just transforming your platform as a service, and you're saying that you're going to move from an on-premise .NET infrastructure to perhaps an Azure cloud service where you're going to build applications. It tends to be lesser. It's just more stuff around how you want to scale up and scale out environments, because your application logic, your programming logic essentially remains same. And this is with a porting problem as well that you need to worry about, right? And finally, if you're just looking at raw iron infrastructure, that is again a very different challenge. You're going from some hardware to essentially moving and renting Amazon space on the cloud or rack space. That's again a very different set of challenges. It's just more moving, cutting over, scaling up, scaling out the service, and ensuring the right service level agreement. So it depends on what you're trying to do. Each layer of the stack comes with different challenges.
Yeah, as we have a dedicated talk on this, we'll move to the next question. Next question from this group.
Privacy.
So is private data being used for big data? Is private data part of big data? I'll just take an initial crack. It is not. So so basically, whatever you are tweeting, there is a Twitter feed which basically, and you can set up the privacy settings there. So there are a lot of data providing companies. Like for example, recently one of the political leader, he mentioned that one versus what is the demand that is going to come. If we have that knowledge, otherwise what is happening is that we are assuming that okay, because of good monsoon in Maharashtra, the sugar output will be more, so they start exporting, and then realizing that the need for sugar is more, then they use imported. So there is an imbalance because of lack of knowledge. So there are data providers. There is a data providing company in Canada who are actually providing data of crops that are being grown in farms of in farms of Tamil Nadu. Now you have these data being available. So it is not personal data that is actually, or consumer data that is always called big data. There are a lot of other data which are important to take decisions. Anyone would like to address this at the panel?
By the businesses and the value proposition that comes from them. So yes, it's a very, I would say, So what state of the city of Chicago has put a lot of data open and is trying to encourage entrepreneurs to use that data and do business. There's a group that's been set up at IIM Bangalore. I was there the other day, a data analytics research lab, where they have got all the census data now. National census data is now available for them, and their agenda is to encourage entrepreneurship, to make this data available to entrepreneurs to create businesses. Okay, so it's an evolving space, and there are no easy, clear, well-defined answers. Right? New York City has taken a stab at it. The Open Data Institute, driven by government of UK, is doing a lot to create the culture of data being sourced and being made available, and then businesses being nurtured or incubated to use this data and create different business models. So that's
Yes, so we have addressed most of the data security concerns. Any other questions which we have?
Yeah, we have two questions here. This is availability in cloud. Amazon, that is EC3 and EC2, is known to have that high availability issues where VMware, VCHS they have the failover option where it can be brought up right instantly, maybe 1 or 2 20 seconds delay or something. So what about Amazon? Do they have similar kind of high availability features?
But really, like you said, we are not qualified to respond directly to that. But our experience is that Amazon has the equivalent failover and scale and everything. In fact, that's why they're the most successful in several ways, right? So when you're talking about migration, like vMotion that VMware has,
absolutely. Yeah, that's right. Similar kind of
I don't
features.
know exactly what they have, but I believe they are able to migrate. They have the disaster recovery kind of scenarios handled.
And the second part will be asked.
Monitoring the infrastructure that are hosted in the cloud. For an example, Siemens has some proprietary applications like Sorian Clinicals, which hold the patient record, which is very critical, right? So I wanted to monitor and make sure the application is 100% up and down. When something goes wrong with the application, you have to be notified. So I know there is monitoring tools available, but from the computer associate company. But do we have anything else to monitor? The cloud monitoring tools that we have.
So are you asking cloud service providers?
Do they have any tools to monitor the environment that we are going to host in the cloud infrastructure?
So tools, you can get all the information. What's the load? What's the CPU usage? What's the traffic they're sensing? The latency. All kinds of parameters can be gathered. Now, is there a central single pane of glass that will show you all this, and are you able to make sense or take action based on that? I don't think there's one solution that suits everyone. What we are looking at particularly is merging the security angle to this. So in the case of security, which we'll talk a little later, it's the processing. You do not want security to become intrusive on the workload or on the business processes. So you want it to be as innocuous, as non-intrusive as possible, which means that we need to be sensing what the workloads are. You don't do a whole bunch of security scans on all the file servers, etc. When some critical business processes are happening. So based on those kinds of data, we are able to reschedule things and do things like that. I'm assuming you have a similar kind of requirement where you are able to make judgment calls, right?
Yes.
For example, I'll give you an example. I have one proprietary application, right? So like Siemens is moving into cloud, and we have applications, we have a service, which are going to be hosted in the cloud. So how do we going to monitor to make sure my application is up?
Please go back to your application management tools kind of thing, right? So
if your cloud provider doesn't provide you monitoring tools, you are on the wrong cloud. I mean, that's simple. Now, with that, just one more point. I think I start the interoperability conversation, right? I mean, I think, can we have one set of tools that's able, because companies have a hybrid environment of AWS and Azure and all of that, can you have one set of tools that manages all these things for you? The short answer is today is not, and that's an interoperability discussion that Pamela will talk about, I think, at length in her session, right? But simply put, monitoring, it's the duty of the cloud provider to provide you a monitoring control. And if they don't, go to somebody else.
Right, so thanks everyone. I think we have come close to the panel from the overall discussion which we had. And those whose question could not be taken, kindly share it with me. I'll then, we have a host of other speakers who will be, addressing it directly. So we can actually help you to find out which speaker will be covering your questions. And you'll get the answers there. Can we have the final concluding remarks starting with Mr. Udayan?
Is that, do you look at cloud as a linear progression of what you have already been doing?